Welcome to Spark Faith with me, Dr. Chris Sargent. This show is about renewed health, rooted in truth, and restored by grace. What does finding health look like for you? Do you have a vision for your future self and a way to get there? I'm Dr. Chris, and after 33 years in functional medicine and a lifelong journey through brain health, weight loss, hormones, mindset, and faith, I know that real transformation doesn't come from willpower or white knuckling your way to wellness. It comes from gratitude, honoring your body as the temple that God created. This show is about body stewardship, not shame. It's about rewiring your mindset, your metabolism, and your spirit to find lasting health without the grind. I'll help you cut through the noise, see opportunities instead of obstacles, and finally live the healthy, purposeful life you were created for. Let's spark faith and transformation together. Spark Faith starts now. Hey, everyone. I am Dr. Chris Sargent, and this is the Spark Faith Show. I have such a fun show coming up for you. We have talked so much physiology the last few weeks, haven't we? Yes, a lot. It's gone deep, and I'm going to give you a little break today. Today is why you keep starting over. Health as stewardship, not striving. And we're going to dive into that whole striving thing. I'm going to tell you a little story about myself. I've alluded to it a couple of times, and I'll tell you a little bit more today. So today, our living fresh pillar is H. This is the H of fresh. We talk about foundation, regulation, energy, strength, and then health as the whole. And that includes this stewardship piece, which may be a hard concept to grasp, but we're going to dive in a little bit more today. And we're going to talk about why most of y'all aren't failing. However, you may be using strategies that don't match your physiology. And honestly, that is where I was. Sustainable health in midlife requires shifting from striving to stewardship and stewarding your physiology, not just trying to push through, if that gives you a clue as to what I was trying to do. So we're going to shift from striving to stewardship and then integrating and implementing what actually works for you. And so that's really what is going to happen in the Living Fresh Collective. It's a place where you're going to be able to take what works for you and leave behind whatever doesn't. I know I have not opened it yet. We are getting close. There's just a lot of stuff that I want to get in there before anyone joins. And so it's just taking me a little longer than I thought it would. So anyway, we have all had these moments, right, where we start strong, we think we're eating clean, we're working out hard and consistent, we're doing everything right. And then something happens, right? And that could be anything, right? Kids get sick, your boss gets overly demanding, somebody has a party, you decide to go off the rail on the weekends, right? Maybe you just slip a little from your routine. And instead of picking up the ball in the next meal, you just kind of keep sliding down that slippery slope, right? And then you just end up tired at the bottom of this hill. Your cravings are back, your schedule fills up, and you feel like you're underwater again, right? You may have even heard that voice in your head, I blew it again, or here we go again, judging and shaming. Or is that just me? Just saying, right? So you start asking, why can't I stay consistent? What is wrong with me? What if this isn't just about discipline? White knuckling, right? What if there's this mismatch between your plan and your physiology? Because many of the things that we do as women, particularly men too, but in the name of health, because this is what we've been told forever, eat less, exercise more. Just keep pushing through the exhaustion. These things, and I have learned in great detail over the last 10 weeks or so that these things are definitely working against my body, and they're probably working against yours too. And then we're going to take this a step deeper. Like, what is the deeper issue here? Right? What is the thing behind the thing behind the thing? Right? Um, because most of us honestly have been taught to treat our body like a project to fix, right? We need to fix our food. We need to fix our movement. We need to fix our hips. We need to fix our waist, or whatever body part comes to your mind, instead of really treating it like a gift to steward, to be gentle with, to take care of, right? The scripture that really pulled at my heart this week is Genesis 2:15. I'm only going to stay here for a second, but I just want you to remember that God, when God placed Adam in the garden, he placed him and Eve there to cultivate and to keep it. Right? This is stewardship. Cultivation takes time, like a garden. And to keep it, this is maintaining it over time. This is not something that takes place in a flash, right? I started diet on Monday and I'm gonna lose 50 pounds this week and everything is going to be just fine. I know. I am definitely have been a product of that kind of magical thinking. And I had to learn this the hard way, right? And I will come back to this in just a few minutes. But today I want to connect everything that we've been talking about over the last few weeks, like metabolism, stress response, muscle, mitochondrial energy, to help you really understand why you have to keep starting over physiologically. I told you I wasn't going to go too deep. I'm not. I'm just going to recap some of the things that we've already talked about. And then how do we finally shift into something more sustainable that is really that stewardship? So at the core of this mismatch, at least in my world, and probably yours, if you look a little bit deeper, there is an issue of control and what I can control and what I can't control, right? But they're under control is usually some sort of fear. It's fear of what people think. It's fear of what you might be thinking about your least favorite body part in reference to what other people may think. There's just usually something bigger, right, than, or smaller, depending on which body part you're thinking about, that's causing the problem, right? We have this deep need to control something when life feels out of control. And in an effort to fix it, we've stuck by these old principles instead of physiology, right? It's the old definition of insanity. We keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting some kind of different result. And here's the truth. You've put in a lot of work, right? Your effort has been very high. The unfortunate thing, and I've said this before, is that your physiological capacity is too low, and they are not the same thing. In fact, they work against each other, and your body is constantly trying to regulate blood sugar and energy and hormones and stress response. And when those systems are super supported, your consistency will feel very natural, right? You're not going to feel like you're just pushing this rock, this boulder uphill. And why do you feel the need to do that anyway? Which is that deeper, what's the thing beneath the thing? Why do you feel like you should be pushing this thing uphill all the time? It's like you don't need to feel like that, right? When we keep our physiology intact, this is just a natural outgrowth of keeping that physiology. All of a sudden you sleep better, you do this, like all the things just fall into place. So skeletal muscle, as we just review here, handles about 70 to 80% of all the glucose disposal, right? Whatever you eat, turns into glucose, whether it's protein, fat, or carbs, it's going to eventually turn into glucose because this is your body's energy, like coinage, right? When you don't have enough muscle tissue, possibly because you've cortisoled it out, because you're too stressed for your body to make muscle tissue, or you're under eating to the point where your body can't produce new muscle tissue, then your blood sugar is going to become unstable, right? Enter cortisol and all the steps that we talked about a couple shows ago. This blood sugar instability creates cravings and energy crashes, raising that muscle consuming cortisol even more. Wrong direction, right? Your energy crashes and become inconsistent, and not necessarily because you're doing the wrong thing, but you're just not doing the right thing when it needs to be done. So this is why this whole blood sugar instability drives craving, right? This is not about necessarily a lack of willpower. So just remember that we're adding in these layers of undereating and overtraining and ignoring recovery, right? If you are working out 6 out of 7 days a week, that is too much. Right? Running on your off days on top of strength training on every other day, like it's too much. You just are continuing to lower your body's capacity. And honestly, this is a lesson that I have been learning, and it's taken me 10 weeks to finally like take it all in and actually shift even more what I was doing. So like think about it like this. If your metabolism is a campfire and it's supported, right? You've got a pile of wood sitting there. It's easy. You just plunk on some wood and the fire grows back, and you just keep plunking on a little wood and it stays going, right? But if the fire gets depleted, it's like you almost have to not just pull from the wood pile, like you have no wood pile anymore, right? Because you've already depleted it. So you have to run out in the forest, chop down the tree, split the wood, and then put it on the fire, which is now like barely embers. So like it may not light again. Maybe it rained in the interim, right? Like so you're constantly trying to restart your metabolism because you haven't really given it enough time to recover. And so, y'all, you're not failing, right? You're just trying to start this consistent, strong fire with too little fuel and too much stress, right? You have to go get the wood. So let's talk about some of the science here that you might be missing, because here's the thing. All that shame that's going on when you're talking poorly to yourself, myself, this may be super surprising, but all that underlying shame, that need for control, that overachieving, the earning the validation ends up backfiring, right? It leaves you feeling defeated and even more depleted because of the stress signals that these emotions elicit. So, right, this guilt, frustration, criticism to physiology, all those negative things in your mind create negative physiology. Shame is like this perceived threat. It activates your nervous system, which increases cortisol, which blah, 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 right? So shame might get you started, but it is not going to be the thing that can sustain your change. And remember, right, this undereating and overtraining trap, this is one of the most common patterns I see in my own life, just so you know you're not alone. Eating too little, exercising too much, and pushing through the fatigue of not sleeping well because of the other two things, right? Elevated cortisol, muscle breakdown, metabolic slowdown. This is not the direction we want to go, right? And here's, you can see the irony in all of this, right? Women are, y'all and me, right? We're working the hardest we can and we are stuck. We are stuck. So we're also, like I said, we're ignoring our sleep. And here's the thing. At the end of the day, you cannot out diet or out exercise poor sleep and chronic stress, right? Because of the disrupted cortisol and blood sugar instability, craving, fatigue, like it just keeps rolling down that proverbial hill. So let's see, like, why does this get worse over 40, which we have talked about in previous episode. Remember that estrogen decline increases visceral fat. Visceral fat in and of itself is inflammatory, causing more stress on our body. We also have less insulin sensitivity, i.e., more insulin resistance, right? We have accelerated muscle loss because of our age. Recovery capacity diminishes, and our stress tolerance window gets really, really flat, right? We just don't have the bandwidth. So all those things that used to work in our 30s and maybe even early 40s have kind of stopped working, right? And then we double down. I'll just eat less. I'll just work out more. I just need more discipline. And it starts all over again. So, y'all, that's exactly what happened. And it's happened to me enough times that I finally had to just say, okay, I'm doing it again. And I need a new strategy. And I started this fresh living collective, Living Fresh Collective. And all of the lessons that I've been teaching you have finally sunk in. Just so you know, it takes more than a minute, right? This is, I think, around my 10th episode on the Living Fresh Collective, and it's finally sinking into my own head. So, this is just what it is, right? I'm disciplined. I've been disciplined for decades. I'm consistent. I was doing all the things that I thought I needed to do: eat less, exercise more, try to get more sleep, but it just wasn't happening. And I just believed in my ego self that I could overcome the physiology that God created. Yeah, that's some pretty good sized ego right there, and pride. And really, all I thought I knew more than God in the moment. And how ridiculous of me. My body pushed back, right? I crashed around Christmas time, and there was a lot of resistance to this change, and I was frustrated because what looked like discipline to me was actually this control and not stewardship. So, control says push harder, override the signals, force your results. But stewardship says get some help, right? That's what it said to me. I need some help. I hired a coach. I can be your coach for so many reasons, right? I've just admitted, like, I'm not perfect. I know what to do. And we need this accountability piece from coaches and a new input to give us that confidence that we need to really shift out of that insanity where we have been. And to help pay attention, we need to support our physiology in such a different way. And then we can respond so much more wisely. And, control really fights our body, right? Stewardship is more like sitting in an inner tube, floating down a nice warm river. Okay. So let's eat to support our metabolism. And we're going to shift from this short term thinking, like, oh, I can get this all done in a month and blah, 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 from short term to longer term thinking, right? Because really we're thinking about longevity here, right? And then from striving to stewardship. So we're going to eat to support our metabolism. We prioritize protein, yes. We stabilize our blood sugar, and we stop the chronic undereating, right? If you are in that 12 to 1500 calories and you are working out every day, you are undereating. Food is fuel. It is not punishment. We are not here to punish our bodies. This will help build and protect our muscle, which I have said muscle is metabolism, right? Yes, resistance training 3 times a week, 2 to 4. But that also needs to be interspersed with some adequate rest days. And those adequate rest days, maybe you're just getting your 10,000 steps in that day. Maybe you're getting 5,000 in. Maybe you just take a slow yoga class. Maybe you take an easy mobility class. Maybe you jump on YouTube and just do something easy and fun. Maybe Tai Chi, right? that adequate protein piece. Now our muscle can add to our metabolic stability, and that muscle will add to our blood sugar control because we are giving it the food that it needs to build up the muscle tissue instead of continually breaking it down and adding fat where we don't want it, right? Over 40, like on our back, on the weird places, on our belly that we never had before, whatever, wherever those places are. I'm sure you know them intimately. And then realizing we need to regulate our stress and prioritize our sleep, right? We have to start protecting our sleep. And that means maybe laying down some boundaries with our older children, maybe talking to your significant other about better sleep, building recovery into your week every other day, and stop ignoring the fatigue that you feel. You may not even realize it. I know I didn't know how tired I was until I stopped and had some recovery days that I could feel like, wow, my legs do feel kind of heavy today. Maybe I really shouldn't go to the gym instead and push through this. Maybe I need to give that muscle time to recover because y'all, muscle doesn't grow at the gym. It grows during recovery, right? We break down our muscle at the gym. We think we're building it, but we're breaking it down. And if we don't rest, we're never going to let that muscle rebuild in bigger, stronger ways. Maybe you need to simplify your approach. I did. I definitely did. You don't necessarily need a stricter plan with more extreme like deprivation or whatever. You don't need some like extreme detox. No, that's like the last thing your body needs is to try to detox. You're just going to keep pushing it and pushing it harder. So you need a system that your body can sustain and that you can sustain within your lifestyle. Yes, you may have to shift some things. Maybe a morning routine needs a refresh, right? Maybe you need to get up a little bit earlier. And if you're going to bed a little earlier, you can do that and get your first meal in before you've been awake for an hour so that you can hit the gym with plenty in your tank to do the workout that you want to do. And then come home and feed that body again so you have blood sugar stability and enough for your muscles to recover. Right? So short-term thinking says, how fast can I fix this? Right? I want to fix this tomorrow. And I can tell you that I am so guilty about how fast can I fix this? Right? But stewardship says, what do I need to do in the long run? And how can I live in the long run? What works fast isn't going to last, right? What lasts usually isn't fast. Stewardship is sustainable. And I just want to remind you of that. Genesis 2:15, God placed Adam and Eve in the garden to cultivate and to keep it, right? That's the picture of stewardship. This isn't control. I know, me too. This isn't striving. That's my go-to. This is not forcing outcomes like I could control my physiology, but tending and caring and paying attention to, just like I tend my garden in the spring, summer, and fall, right? My body is not a project to fix, and neither is yours. It is a gift to steward, and that requires a little wisdom, right? A little bit of patience. I know it's a four-letter word for me too. And consistency, not perfection, right? Progress over perfection. Every coach says that. Progress over perfection. If your body feels harder to manage than it used to, that is not failure, that is physiology. And wisdom invites you to respond with care, not criticism. So if you've been stuck in this cycle of starting over, you are not the problem necessarily. Your plan just has not matched the physiology, right? And that deeper need for control and striving is really what's driving all of this. And the goal is not to try harder, it's to live differently. Because, if you want to change your life, you have to change your life, right? We have to change those inherent routines that we get into. We have to become so aware of what we do, like on the regular, every day when we get up, we do this, and then we do that, and then we do this, and then we do that, right? I know, like, I love my coffee in the morning. My coffee does not come until after I have fed all my animals. And so I just am ready for my cup of coffee and sit down, right? And hit my prayer time. And now I've realized I need to make my coffee first so I can drink my coffee while I feed my dogs and cats and all of my menagerie. And then I can sit and have a little bit of quiet time before I eat breakfast and then go to the gym instead of doing work and going to the gym later. I need to eat, let that settle for a little bit, go to the gym, and then refeed my body so that I am ready to start my day. And yes, I get up early. I am an early riser, and you can be an early riser too. I know that that seems like counterintuitive, but then I feel like I'm striving again, and I'm not a morning person. And you can tell yourself all those things. And in the Living Fresh Collective, we will talk about like how to become a morning person, because you can. It just is going to take some time and some effort. And those are the pieces where we run into our resistance, right? Change creates this resistance. And, in my world, that is just spiritual warfare. It is God. It is not God when resistance pops up, right? That is something else that is working against what you know you need to be doing. And we can just say, go away. I don't always say it that gently, right? In Jesus' name, go away. I am not going to deal with that today. But we can live differently. We can shift from shame to understanding and from control to stewardship, right? Shame to stewardship. This is where we want to stay, is in that caretaking place. And we can shift from these extreme fluctuations into some consistency. And that is why the Living Fresh Collective exists, to dive deeper into this. It's not another plan, right? It's going to give you and help you build that way of living, a different way of living your life that actually works with your body. It works with your physiology. It's a plan to fit physiology. It is not shame. It is stewardship. And we are all about renewed health, rooted in truth, and restored by grace. So this week, give yourself some grace, hit subscribe, hit like, share this episode if you loved it with one of your friends, and tell them to subscribe too. And I will see you right here next week, where we are going to dive into F for foundational, and we're going to dive a little bit more into some physiology again. Love you all so much. Have a great week. Bye. You've been listening to Spark Faith with me, Dr. Chris Sargent. This show is about renewed health, rooted in truth, and restored by grace. Tune in every Thursday morning at 9:30 a.m. Pacific on the Transformation Talk Radio for more simple, faith-fueled steps to live the vision God placed in your heart. Are you ready to take the next step? Schedule a discovery call or connect with me at drchrissargent.com. That's DRKRIS Sargent.com. While you're there, download my free ebook, Endless Energy, the 6 non-negotiable keys to endless energy, and sign up for an upcoming masterclass. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share the show, and I'd love to connect with you on social media at Dr. Chris Sargent. Let's keep sparking faith and transformation together. Can't wait to see y'all next time.